Good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. on August 26th, and you are tuned in to the Mock and Roll Show, the best fantasy football podcast out there, called the Mock and Roll Show, as a matter of fact, according to the statistics I have looked at. John, do you know of any other Mock and Roll Show podcasts that are better than this one?
I think there's a Christian Bible group called the Mock and Roll Show, but I can't be sure. I'll have to check.
Yeah, do me a favor, get those numbers to me, and we'll clarify those stats next week. Okay, all right. Anyway, welcome to the show. We're joined tonight by one of our pros from last week's Mock and Roll Show, first annual league draft, Adam Harstad from Football Guys, who has shed the hat but added the glasses. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think you had glasses last week. Is that right?
I did not have glasses last week.
I am observant. That's why they paid me the big bucks.
Very Clark Kent, if I might add.
No, yeah, last week I was Superman. I was drafting, so I had to be in full-on Superman mode.
You know what? It all makes sense now. Of course, joining me, we have Johnny, J3, and then of course Damien over there, who is looking like he has a little bit more hair on his head than last week.
No.
No? No, damn it. All right, but anyway, guys, welcome to the show. Tonight we're going to be doing a bit of a draft recap as we get through things. We'll talk a little bit of news and notes. We'll sort of jockey for position and talk about who had the best team coming out of last week's fantasy draft, which according to Adam, all of us agree that it's Adam's team. But let's get into what we normally do here, which is we sauce players. Tonight, we're not going to sauce like we normally do. We're not going to talk about three guys, who are similar in ADP in the same position, and who do you take over who. Instead, we're going to talk about three guys that are potentially on the rise, whether it be due to injury, due to their situation, or due to other reasons, and just talk about, are they overvalued or are they undervalued at their position? Do you take a guy a little bit early, or do you not buy into the hype? And of course, tonight we're going to be talking about Detroit Lions running back Ameer Abdullah, Green Bay Packers wide receiver Davante Adams, and we're going to be talking about the guy who hates his nickname, the Muscle Hamster, Doug Martin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, by the way, there's an article out every year, Damien, I'm pretty sure, where Doug Martin is just begging you to stop calling him the Muscle Hamster. In fact, he has made suggestions. He's fine with being called the Duggernaut. That's true, by the way. The Duggernaut. He's fine with being. There's a couple other things that he likes. The Duggernaut was the one that stood out the most. But don't call him the Muscle Hamster. It really pisses him off.
Well, listen. After his year last year, he should be happy we're even talking about him at all.
Okay, I'll give you that. My thing is this.
He lost muscle last year. Right now, he really...
More hamster.
No, he's in better shape. They said he's in better shape now, actually. So, but here's my thing, right? If you don't want to be called the Muscle Hamster, and Doug Martin, I know you listen to this podcast every single week, and that's why I'm, personally delivering this message to you. So from me to you, Doug Martin, if you don't want to be called the Muscle Hamster, don't have such a great nickname like the muscle hamster. Just saying, you hate it and think it's stupid, but you're the Muscle Hamster. Juggernaut is stupid. Anyway, when we talk about saucing players, of course, we're talking about four key categories. SAUS, we're talking about situation. We're talking about ability. We're talking about upside, and we're talking about safety, which is your floor. So let's jump into it. Damien, I'm going to start with you. When you're talking about situation, you're talking about, the situation, of course, involving, injuries to other players on your team. You're talking about the staff you have. You're talking about the roster that you have around you in order to give you the ability to succeed as a player. So speaking about situation, when you're talking about these three guys, who do you have at number one in your list for situation?
Well, of the three guys, I think you have to really look at one in particular who has the best situation, and it's not close to me. It has to be Davante Adams in the wake of, obviously, of Jordy Nelson going down with the ACL. Davante Adams is now in line to be the number 2 receiver for the Green Bay Packers. He's going to eat up, at least in theory, we think, and according to some of what's coming out of Green Bay, he's going to eat up a lot of Jordy Nelson's targets. He has the best quarterback in football throwing to him in Aaron Rodgers. So his situation of the three is the most intriguing, in my opinion.
All right. Adam, I'm going to kick it over to you. Which of these three players do you feel is in the best situation?
I'm going to have to – I don't think there's really any debate on that one. I do think it's Davante Adams. I had a great stat going into last season that from, I believe it was 2010 to 2013, If you ranked every fantasy receiver in the NFL by fantasy points per target, the top 3 were Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and James Jones. Basically, a target from Aaron Rodgers is just worth more than a target from anyone else in the NFL. And insofar as Davante Adams is now in line for a lot more of those targets, I think that's a great place for him to find himself.
All right, now, John, I'm gonna pose the same question to you, but I'm also gonna preface that by assuming there's not too much more to that, because I agree with these guys. I mean, being given the opportunity that he has, I mean, he was basically handed a golden ticket that, you know what I mean, he's got to lose that and blow the opportunity. So I want to hear what you have to say about Davante Adams, and assuming that you agree and have him at number 1 in situation, I'd like you then to jump right into who you have at number 2 after you talk about that.
You, my friend, assume too much. I actually think Doug Martin is in the best situation, and I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Doug Martin is the starter there. He is the starting running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers until he loses that job. The other 2 guys, listen, I love Davante Adams, but there's a lot of guys there that are up and coming that are young guys. Jeff Janis is one that they're very high on. Ty Montgomery is another guy. Young guys. Davante Adams is a good receiver, but he's not that proven yet. Let him prove something. We've seen Doug Martin, again, he had a bad year last year. I don't know if that was all on Doug Martin. A lot of it was the line. A lot of it was bad quarterback play. They obviously have Jameis Winston there, who again is a young guy, but he has the intangibles that he could be a good player. The line got a little bit better, I believe. And Ameer Abdullah, again, he's the backup there. He's gonna get his touches. But again, I think Abdullah is going to be okay this year. I think he's going to be really good next year. But I'm going to actually say Doug Martin because he is the actual starter. He is starting the year as the number 1 ball carrier until he does something to lose that job.
Now, I want to actually comment on something to support what you said there as well, though. The one big thing that we have to keep in mind is when you have a rookie quarterback like Jameis Winston, they're going to want to take as much of the pressure off of him as possible. And so aside from having the pacifier, at tight end that they can just dump it off to, they want to keep that defense honest. And I think when you give it to a guy, like Doug Martin, listen, the guy who has had, two bad years the last 2 years, and I mean statistically, combined they were under 1,000 yards, but he was also hampered by injury the last 2 years, and so if you can look at his 2012 campaign, his breakout rookie season, this camp, they're saying that he is finally healthy. He's finally healthy, and John, right there, you're right. He is the starter there. So I think they're going to want to keep that defense honest, and Doug Martin is in a position to really make the most of his opportunity to take that pressure off Jameis Winston. I mean, it's his, like you're saying, it's his job to lose. So you make a great, compelling argument. But then, if that's the case, then would it be safe to say that you have Davante Adams at number 2?
Yes.
All right. Did you want to add anything?
And really for the reasons that both Damien and Adam, right?
Mm.
Was Adam? So,
yeah,
I
Adam.
keep looking at names. Okay, it's
Still Adam.
Yeah, still Adam. I was thinking Clark Kent, but
I was going to say I wasn't sure if it was Clark. Right. Go ahead.
I know. I was confused with the glasses. But I'm going to go with both the, listen, Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. They have a great offense. I think it's going to be plug and play at that wide receiver spot, whether it's Davante Adams or a young Jeff Janis or someone else. Whoever's in that spot is going to get a lot of work. Because listen, Randall Cobb, he's going to get his. He always does. But if Davante Adams is as good as he was last year in his limited playing, he's going to be a good one.
Now, Damien, if I know you like I think I know you, I could be wrong here. I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that at number 2 you've got Ameer Abdullah.
I do actually have Abdullah at 2. It's close for me. The reason I don't have Martin, Johnny's absolutely right that Martin has a clearer path to starter work. He has a clearer path to more touches. However, I do not believe in despite the fact that they looked really good against the Bengals, I do not believe in the Buccaneers' offense, and I especially do not believe in their league worst offensive line. So I also think that Charles Sims is going to be coming in and getting a lot of third down work on that team. So to me it's close, but I have Abdullah at 2 for situation.
I would be, by the way, I just want to say I'd be willing to place a friendly show wager here, Damien, and say that Doug Martin has a better statistical season than Ameer Abdullah by season's end.
I'll take it.
I'll take
all
it.
right. All right. Well, what's that?
I'll take that.
Yeah? Are you saying you're for Ameer?
No, for Martin, man.
Oh, for Martin.
Yeah, you two versus me. I'll take that. I'll take that all day.
All right. If history has shown us anything, it's shown that, John, you picked the right side of that decision.
Well, and listen, here's the stipulation. Sean, if we lose, you got to shave your head.
Join the club.
You got to shave yours.
There you go. What do you lose then, Johnny?
I'll shave my head.
Deal. Adam, number 2, who do you got?
I think in PPR leagues it's got to be Abdullah, and just because that Joe Lombardi, Sean Payton offense that they imported from New Orleans has historically been the most productive offense for running back receptions that the NFL has ever seen. I mean, 2 years ago, you had New Orleans had Darren Sproles and Pierre Thomas both had 70 receptions, and Reggie Bush and Joique Bell both had 50 receptions. There was just an insane. I think they were like 4 of the top 8 running backs in receptions, and they came from 2 teams. And so I think in a PPR league, there's a much easier path for playing time, even if Joique proves a little bit intractable and Abdullah can't make too much headway there. It would be very easy for him to have a Danny Woodhead-like season where he gets maybe 500 rushing yards, but adds in another 60 receptions, 500 receiving yards, chips in maybe 8 to 10 touchdowns, and gets good fantasy relevance that way. So I do think Abdullah's in the second best situation in PPR, whereas in standard I'd probably favor Doug Martin. I'm not as worried about his offensive line. At Football Guys, we have a resident offensive line guru who that's what he does is he follows all of the transactions and all the player signings, and he grades the offensive lines. And he's actually got there's a pretty tight clump right in the middle of the league, so with the caveat that there's not a huge difference between, say, 15th and 25th. I think he has Tampa Bay right around 15th or 16th. He's a big believer in their guards, and they invested some quality rookie picks, and so he thinks they're going to be pretty improved this year. So in a standard league, I would say that Doug Martin does indeed have the better situation. But in PPR, I'd roll the dice on the guy who's going to be catching 1 million passes.
Okay, so before we move on here and have the number 3 discussion move on, I'm just trying to figure something out because this has not happened before on this show. And I'll let you guys decide who wants to go first here. But either Damien, tell me why your what do you want to say? That Johnny is so wrong for having Doug Martin at number 1 when you have Doug Martin at number 3 for situation. Or Johnny, tell me why you are so right to have him at number 1 and Damien is out of his mind for having him at number 3. I'm just curious for situation. Who wants to take it? Go ahead, Damien.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me it's about belief first and foremost. I don't believe in the Buccaneers team. They have a rookie quarterback there. I know they have a couple good weapons on the outside, but and Adam dropped some really good information over at Football Guys. They have the Bucs line in the middle of the pack. The guys that the other guys I've listened to, Ross Tucker, SI.com, have had the Bucs at the very bottom of the pack. I just think that the Lions are going to be a much more dynamic offense overall than the Bucs will be. And I'm sure some of my bias against Doug Martin is creeping into that idea that he's the nominal starter, but if he starts to look a little rough, I could see Charles Sims stepping in and taking some of those carries too.
Johnny, can you tell me why Ameer Abdullah at 3?
I'm not a big believer in Stafford, and who knows about Calvin Johnson, so I think that's going to lay heavily on the run game. But I think Joique Bell, he's the guy there until he proves otherwise. I think Abdullah's good, but I think he'll be better next year, where I think Doug Martin showed flashes already this preseason. It looks like he got the burst back. He's running hard. The line's opening up holes. Listen, the first 2 preseason games, they have 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns already. So I believe in the Bucs. I believe in Doug Martin. I think he's going to go back to 2012 form. I think he has a good cast around him to alleviate them putting 8 in a box or 7 in a box. I think with Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson and even Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I think it's going to be a good, well-rounded, and they have Louis Murphy Jr. in the slot, which isn't a bad slot guy. Again, he's not a world beater, but again, he's someone who's quick enough to, kind of run the seam patterns. I like the Bucs team. I think they're going to be much improved over last year, and I think Doug Martin's going to reap a lot of the benefit.
I will say this, too. One of the big things that Doug Martin lost the last 2 seasons when he was hampered by nagging injuries, ankles and hamstrings, things like that. One of the things that he had lost that he had in his 2012 breakout campaign, and that made him such, a wanted guy coming out of college was, he's one of those rare, very, very rare players, very rare running backs that has the ability to not only cut on a dime like a LaShawn McCoy, but also never lose speed in the process. And they're saying that this preseason, Doug Martin has that back again this year, where he's able to change direction, cut, and still keep that speed, not slow down and then speed back up. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Let's move on. Actually, talking about abilities to cut, keep that speed. Let's talk about ability. And this time, Johnny, I'm going to come right back to you here. John, of these 3 guys, who has the most ability?
I think it's Abdullah. I think ability-wise, I think you have to go with Abdullah. He's one of those, and like Adam was saying before, I think he's going to be freaky good. I think he's going to be a game-changing running back once he gets the full reins. Again, giving his ability, once he learns the ins and outs of the NFL system, once he kind of gets a year under his belt, I think he's going to be a top 10 running back.
Yeah, the conversation right now in camp is, while he does look solid, they're expecting to bring back Bell any day now, and that, he will be healthy when he gets back on the field. So right now, all signs point to a 65-35, split there in Detroit. Damian, for you, what are we talking here about ability? Who do you have at number 1?
Yeah, you got to have Ameer Abdullah. I know that he's only played a couple preseason games, but if you go back and you look at his college tape, and if you listen to what scouts are saying, the team is saying, people outside the situation are saying, this is a guy with Jamal Charles level talent. This is a guy who, I agree with Johnny, I think, if I'm wrong about Abdullah, it will be for this year. I don't think it will be for next year. I think he's a guy who can be one of those game-changing players. I don't think the other 2 guys on this list are that at all. I don't think it's close to me. I think Ameer is head and shoulders above these other 2.
Adam?
I'd probably put it as a toss-up between Abdullah and Davante Adams. Abdullah's looked pretty good in preseason, and he's been drawing some raves. The Packers really loved Adams last year, and let's not forget that he looked phenomenal in the playoffs. I remember that I was on Twitter during his big game. He had over 100 yards, and I was tweeting status updates for people in my leagues about what he's available for if they are starting to get a little jealous and deciding to send me some trade offers. Ultimately, I think they're all a bunch of big unknowns. But Abdullah and Adams were both second-round draft picks recently. They've both shown some dynamic ability. There's a lot of question marks surrounding both of them. I'd have a hard time separating the 2 of them at this point.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, and this is sort of going to be the same question in a different way, I guess. But if it's hard for you to decide which one of them should be number 1, do you have any idea which one would be easier for you to decide would be your second guy, if that makes sense? You know what I'm saying? While you may not have a clear-cut number 1 there, is there one that you feel like drifts down to number 2 a little bit easier?
No. At this point, I think one of the lessons I've had to learn in my last couple of years as an analyst is sometimes it's best to just say I don't know. I think at this point, I'm kind of at the point where I like both of them. I don't know which one I like better, and if I'm just guessing at this point, really that's all it would be, is just guessing. Abdullah gets a lot of hype. I know Matt Waldman is a huge Ameer Abdullah fan. Adams looked great during the playoffs. I'm reserving judgment on both of them, but I'm cautiously optimistic on both.
Okay. Johnny, I'm going to come over to you. Number 2. Or excuse me. Number 1. What's that?
What happened?
I was going to say, I actually need to hit you up here for number 2. I'm sorry. I got you number 1. My fault, man.
Okay. I actually have Davante Adams and Doug Martin kind of as a toss-up. The reason that is, we've seen the ability from Doug Martin, again, his rookie season. He can do it. Again, he hasn't because of injury, so I think that kind of knocks him down a little bit. And Davante Adams, I do like Davante Adams. The problem is it's hard to gauge what his ability is when he's playing on such a great offense. I think that's a guy where you can throw substitute a Davante Adams for, a Ruben Randall from the New York Giants. I think Ruben Randall looks like an amazing superstar if he's on that team. I think Aaron Rodgers makes players look better than what they might be. I want to see Davante Adams do it again for me to get a better idea. But for upside or for ability, I'm going to say Doug Martin because I've seen him do it. He's coming in healthy. I'm going to wipe the last 2 years away, and I'm going to say he's going to do it again. He's still a young guy. If he's healthy, the line's better, the offense is going to be better. I think his ability is going to shine through, and I'm going to say Doug Martin, a close number 2.
Damien, break it up here. There's a lot of people not wanting to make solid decisions. Really quick.
I will give you a very solid decision. I have Davante Adams at number 2, but I don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about who I have at number 3 because to me it's a big drop off. I have Ameer Abdullah way up here. I have Davante Adams somewhere in the middle, and way down there I have Doug Martin. I am not a believer in Doug Martin. I do not buy it. I know that he lost weight in camp. I watched the preseason game, and he did have lateral agility. But if you watch the game, to me, he was sluggish. To me, he does not have vertical burst. He broke a couple tackles. To me, that was the Bengals not giving a good effort. I am not a buyer in Doug Martin. It really, even if you go back to 2012 in his rookie season, he had a couple of big games. He destroyed Oakland. I think he actually had 3 really big games. The rest of the year, he really didn't do that much. I think that he's decent. I don't think he's a special talent. And I don't think his ability. To me, I'd rather have Chris Ivory as my starting running back, just from an ability standpoint, than Doug Martin at this point in their careers.
Wow.
Well, and so now of course that moves us on to upside, and upside is your ceiling. Upside's where you're getting your boom, and you're not so much worried about your bust there. So, Damien, let's start with you. When you're talking about upside, I feel like you're you're just holding hands with Ameer Abdullah here, hoping you take him in the 3rd round of our draft.
Well, you know what? When you talk about upside with these 3 guys, you can't give it to Ameer Abdullah because it's going to be capped. Because as much as I might profess my love for Ameer Abdullah, Joyke Bell did not disappear. So ultimately, for upside, to me, this one is Davante Adams because I think his upside is to get 90% of what Jordy Nelson got last year, which was 151 targets. I think Nelson got 90-some catches, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, I think that's really his upside this year, and I think that puts him head and shoulders at the top of the list here for me in terms of upside.
All right, Adam, let's go ahead with your number 1 for upside.
Yeah, it's got to be Adams. You look, James Jones didn't he have like 14 touchdowns there one year? I mentioned before that in terms of fantasy points per target, it's good to be playing with Aaron Rodgers. He's just hyper efficient, hyper aggressive. Most quarterbacks you look at like an Alex Smith, and the cost of his efficiency is just the explosive plays, and so he's throwing well short of the sticks. But Aaron Rodgers is one of those rare freaks who manages to be efficient and explosive at the same time. And if Davante Adams manages to tap into that, he could easily have 1,200 yards this year. That would not surprise me.
All right, Johnny.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say Davante Adams. I'm not as strong as a believer as I think Adam and Damien are, but I will say him because of Aaron Rodgers and because of his ability to get the ball where it needs to be. Yeah, he is going to take a lot of the Jordy Nelson pickup. He's going to take a lot of that slack. But yeah, I guess Davante Adams would be number 1. Again, don't feel strongly about it, but I do feel like he would be just because of Aaron Rodgers.
Well, do you feel strongly about your number 2?
No. Well, yeah. I'm going to say Doug Martin. I'm on the Doug Martin train. I think he's going to get. Listen, back to what Damien was saying on the last one. In 2012, you say he wasn't that great of a season. Almost 1,500 rushing yards, 4.6 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns, 50 balls caught.
No, I didn't say it wasn't a great season.
No, I'm just saying. You're saying, oh, well, he did good against Oakland, but I think it was a little better than probably what you were saying. But the reason I say that is I think their offense is going to be better than people think. The Detroit Lions, I have some reservations about that team. I think old Calvin Johnson, if he can stay healthy, that's one thing, but I don't think he's going to. And if Calvin Johnson goes down, I think that team kind of crumbles almost like dominoes. Because if Calvin Johnson's not there, Golden Tate's not that effective. They're going to stack the box. And again, I don't believe in Stafford either. So I think I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, an up-and-coming team where I think Detroit is kind of not there.
Fair enough. Damien, I'm going to swing right back in your direction here. Who do you have at number 2 for upside?
This one is really close to me. I think again, I'm going to say Ameer Abdullah, but again, it has to do more with what I think his ability is than it has to, and the lack of ability that I see in Doug Martin. I really think that, and again, I'll disagree with Johnny. I'm not a buyer on Jameis Winston. I know he showed well in the one preseason game. I'm not a buyer on him yet. I'm definitely not a buyer on that team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not a buyer on the offense. I think their drives are going to stall a lot. So I think upside has to me number 2 has to be Ameer Abdullah.
All right. And Adam, number 2.
I'm going to, again, toss out in a PPR league, Ameer Abdullah. Because his upside, if we're talking about theoretical upside, if he takes the job convincingly from Joique Bell, I think he has Clinton Portis upside. I don't know if you remember, Clinton Portis entered 2002 third in the pecking order, possibly even 4th in the pecking order. They had Terrell Davis back for his final year. They had Olandis Gary in the mix. They had Mike Anderson, who they eventually moved to fullback. And there was a lot of talk about, Clinton's going to have to earn his stripes. He's going to have to earn his wings, and he did that. He showed during the first 4 weeks that he was the most explosive talent on the team, and he just destroyed the rest of the league down the stretch. Averaged 5.5 yards per carry, put up, I believe, 1,500 yards rushing. And I could see Abdullah doing that, probably not with the rushing, but again, the receptions are going to be a possibility if everything breaks right in his way. If you told me that either Doug Martin or Ameer Abdullah was finishing the season with 1,800 yards and you didn't know which, I'd probably guess it was Abdullah before Martin.
Wow. So, I mean, now to me, that makes the assumption that Joique Bell ends up being complete trash and just falls off the planet. I mean, wouldn't you have to think?
Well, not necessarily. It could just be that Abdullah is that good and he forces the decision. When Clinton Portis was lighting things up, it's not that the other running backs were trash. But to me, that's part of upside. Upside is if things break your way.
Right.
And I don't think I think it's one thing to say, oh, well, if everybody else in the league gets injured, then Doug Martin will be the number 1 running back. I think that's like a pretty extreme assumption. But assuming that a rookie outplays a 29 or 30-year-old veteran, I don't think is that extreme of an upside assumption. It's not something I would necessarily bet on, but it's something that I can easily see happening.
Right, and I'm going to come right back to you here briefly, Adam. Adam, so, finishing up this upside conversation, based on what everybody else has said, that clearly, puts you at the last decision to be made there on upside, and that's going to say that Doug Martin is 3rd on your list. So let me just not ask you then if, who you have at number 3, but instead let me ask you this. For your money, what is Doug Martin's upside for you on this Tampa Bay offense in 2015?
I think he can still be good. It's been 2 years since he's been good, but I try to take a historical mindset and I look back, and we've seen examples of guys who have fallen off the planet and we think they're done and they come back. We saw Ricky Williams with the Dolphins. Marshawn Lynch was garbage his last 2 years in Buffalo before and his first year in Seattle too, when he got traded before he came back. So I'm not necessarily saying that Doug Martin looked terrible and the book is closed on him. But I do think in that offense with those receivers, I don't think it's going to be an explosive offense. I just don't think there's going to be enough production around like in Indianapolis where you can have studs at all the positions theoretically.
Right.
I think a good season from Doug Martin would probably be in the RB12 to RB15 range. I think that's achievable. I would say maybe his upside would be a little bit above that, maybe RB10 or best case scenario RB8. I can't see him being one of those league winners this year.
No, I hear where you're coming from there, and I think you make a lot of good points. It's tough. I mean, because it really comes down to, are you going to get 2012 Doug Martin just because he's healthy, or is he just going to be a healthy version of the last two seasons? I mean, it's really sort of up in the air at this point. We just don't know. That brings us to safety. Again, going with, you don't really know what you're going to get with some of these guys. Some of these guys have a little bit of an injury history. Some of them are just a big question mark because they haven't played, except for a couple of preseason snaps in the NFL. They haven't played in the NFL. And then you have guys like Davante Adams who are coming in to a situation where, like Johnny said, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, who I also believe can make, really any quality wide receiver look like a monster just based on, his ability to deliver the ball. And even though I don't really have a deciding vote in this conversation, I'm going to go out there and I just want to start this off in saying that if you're asking, for my money, who's going to be the safest guy to take of these three, you know what I mean? I feel like the conversation has to start with Davante Adams again. Aaron Rodgers knows how to deliver the ball. He's going to get the ball where his receiver can catch it. And Davante Adams, like you said earlier, Adam, he's shown the ability to make plays when given the opportunity to do so. So I mean, Damien, I'm going to come to you here. Would you agree with what I started to say here with Davante Adams?
Let me preface it by saying I don't think any of these guys are particularly safe, but I think if I were to pick one of the three to be the safest, you're talking about, going to have a role that we think he's going to have. I'm going to say Ameer Abdullah because I think he's the least likely of the three to be Wally pipped. In other words, I think that there's a greater possibility that Davante Adams doesn't come through and they put Jeff Janis or Ty Montgomery ahead of him than there is that Joyke Bell pushes out Ameer Abdullah altogether. And I think there's a much greater chance that Abdullah doesn't get pushed out than that Doug Martin shows what he was the last 2 years, which I personally think he's going to show again this year, and ends up losing time to Bobby Rainey, Charles Sims, Mike James, any of the guys on that Tampa Bay roster. So although I don't think he has, he doesn't have a clear path to 100% starter touches, I think Abdullah is the safest in that. I don't think he's going to lose his job. The other two guys, I think it's more possible.
Adam.
I think Damien has a lot more faith in Jeff Janis and Ty Montgomery than I do, because I'm with you, Sean. I think Davante Adams is going to really be the hardest of those three to displace, just because and I think experience counts for a lot. It's only a year, and I know Janis was around. He didn't really play as much with Aaron Rodgers. I think he spent part of the year on the practice squad, if I recall correctly. But Adams was in there. He was playing. He was developing the chemistry. It's possible that if he's just really terrible, that he gets replaced. But I think that's true of all three of them. And inertia is probably going to keep Adams a second on that wide receiver depth chart to Randall Cobb, or at the very least active in three wide receiver sets.
Yeah, fair enough. And here's the one thing I also want to mention to go along with what you were saying there quickly, which is, Damien, I understand exactly, I do understand what you're saying with regards to Ameer Abdullah and, his ability to kind of steal the show there, you know what I mean? And a guy, like Doug Martin, who you think is going to, who has a better opportunity, or excuse me, there's more of a chance that he'll lose his job, and lose carries to guys like Sims. But the one thing I want to, throw out there with Davante Adams, and please, this whole panel can correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, Davante Adams is significantly more talented than the two guys that are sitting behind him, and he's shown the ability to make plays. And so to me, this isn't just Davante Adams wanting to make sure that he puts up a strong showing, but it's, man, do I want to be the guy who lost this job to those guys? You know what I'm saying? Whereas I feel like it's not as much of a drop-off if Doug Martin loses it to Charles Sims, you know what I mean, and whatnot. Johnny, what do you think?
Here's my thoughts. I think it's Davante Adams, and I don't think it's as close as Damien's saying it is. Listen, I like Ameer, but again, you got to remember, Ameer's not even the starter there. Bell is, and it's not so much where Abdullah's going to push him out. Abdullah got to get the job first. He's gonna split carries, and you're also assuming that the Lions are going to be good. I don't think that they're going to be that good. I don't have faith in Stafford. I don't have faith in Megatron staying healthy. He's another year older. I think the wheels are kind of falling off there. And I think everything kind of falls to the wayside with him. Where I think, listen, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, the best quarterback in football, throwing to a guy who's shown he's had the ability to catch the ball, and that's really all you need. If you're in that offense with that guy, he will put it anywhere he wants, and he's going to make you look good. Now, with that being said, all these guys have, a little bit of flaw. I think Jeff Janis is pretty good. I don't think he's as good as Davante Adams, but it doesn't mean he can't be. There's plenty of instances where we've seen guys that are on practice squads or younger guys coming up and being a superstar. But I think Davante Adams at this point is the safest guy. He's.
Well, here's another thing, John. You talk about how you don't think the Lions are going to be a good team. If the Lions aren't a good team, what's that mean? That means they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Guess what Ameer Abdullah is terrible at? Pass blocking. He's a terrible pass blocker, and that's a big concern for the Lions right now with him. John, I'm going to come back to you here, actually. Who do you have at number 2 for safety?
Number 2 for safety, again, these are like literally a hair apart. I'm going to go with Abdullah, and here's why. The team is not going to be that great, and like you said, they are going to pass the ball a lot, and I think that's where you're going to see Abdullah shine. It ain't going to be running the ball. I think it's going to be more the receiving aspect of it, where I think he, especially in, like Adam was saying before, PPR, he would, he'd be a really sneaky good pick for PPR, where, obviously Doug Martin's not going to catch that many balls. Again, and we're talking about safety here. Doug Martin last 2 years has been injured, and he hasn't been a productive running back. That is a concern. I believe in him. Other people don't, which is fine. But I think there's a better chance of Abdullah catching a lot more balls, taking a little bit of that away from taking a little bit of the running away from Bell in the beginning. I'm not saying he can't take it all away from him towards the end of the year, but I'm thinking the first half of the season is probably going to be split carries, maybe 60-30, but he's catching a lot more balls than Bell. So I'm going to go with Abdullah for number 2.
Okay, now, Adam, when I come to you for your number 2 here, I just have a side note here, because Johnny brings up an interesting, poses something that makes me come up with a good question here, which is this: you're a guy who seems to know his numbers, seems to know the ins and outs of of these teams and of what's going on from a personnel standpoint. So for Johnny to say that literally, it's a difference of a hair. My question is do you have a body and head hair count between Doug Martin and Ameer Abdullah to support the statement that they're only a hair apart, literally and not figuratively?
No, that was literal. I got thick hair.
First of all, I would like to clarify, are we talking H-A-I-R or H-A-R-E? Because I think there's a rather large difference between a hair and a rabbit.
I mean, can it be both? I mean, this is a podcast, so
rabbit hair for the fur.
Right. No, but who do you have here at number 2?
I think decisively Doug Martin, just because Doug Martin's path production relies on Doug Martin, whereas Ameer Abdullah's path production relies both on Abdullah and Joique Bell. If Joique Bell plays too well, then Abdullah's going to find it hard to carve out a larger role. And I think, we've seen in the past these annoying little veterans have a habit of hanging around a lot more than we think they should or they could. You look at the Browns last year. They cut Ben Tate. They didn't even like Ben Tate, and yet he still managed to keep Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell pretty much off the field for the first 4 weeks. The veterans just sit around and they leach value, and that could easily happen to Ameer Abdullah. And so while I would not be surprised if he had 1,800 yards, I also wouldn't really be that surprised if he finished the year with 500 yards either.
Now, Damien, since you have not shown really any love for Doug Martin, I'm going to assume that you don't have Doug Martin at number 2.
He hates Doug Martin.
wait. And before you give me your number 2 here, assuming it's not Doug Martin. Here's the thing, Damian, right? I know when we're talking about safety, all the things that are involved. So I guess what I'm having a hard time understanding from your perspective is that you have Ameer Abdullah as number 1 for safety. But like John said multiple times, Ameer Abdullah is not even the starter. He's a 35% split right now, where Doug Martin is the starter. So assuming that you don't have Doug Martin at number 2, why would you, Adams over, Martin, aside from the Aaron Rodgers factor?
Yeah, well, one of the things I love about this show is that, every week is a ranking summit, and so when we sit down here and we discuss, when we talk about these things, sometimes we change each other's minds, and you guys have changed mine here with Ameer Abdullah's safety. I don't, I'm going to go back. I have, I'm gonna move Davante Adams up to number 1 at safety. You guys made some really compelling points. I want to clarify one thing. I don't believe that, I know Joique Bell is the nominal starter, and Adams is absolutely right. Joique Bell's not going to go away. Joique Bell is he's not a dumpster fire. Joique Bell is a good running back. He's not bad at all. So he's going to be there. I do not believe that will be a 65-35 split in favor of Joique Bell, even to start the season. I think it's going to be 50-50 at worst for Ameer Abdullah, but just because of the guy's talent. But that being said, yeah, it's silly to have Ameer Abdullah up at number 1 here. I'll put Adams at 1. I'll keep Abdullah at 2 again, because I just don't believe that Doug Martin is a safe player after 2 years of him being so lackluster. And then that means I'd have Martin at 3.
Okay. Anything you guys want to add as far as safety goes? Adam and John, you both have him at number 3. John, I know you've been the big Doug Martin supporter here. But is there anything you want to add quickly, John or Adam, regarding Doug Martin?
His nickname's the Muscle Hamster.
And he hates you for that. No, all right.
I'll add one real quick thing about Doug Martin. Whether you like him, love him, or whether you hate him, his ADP is flying up. In fact, in ESPN ADP, he's jumped by 13 places over the last week. Wow. That's just on ESPN. He is flying up boards.
And then I guess the last thing here to finish out the sauce thing real quick with safety is Adam, maybe you already covered it when you said you wouldn't be surprised if a guy has 1,800, you wouldn't be surprised if he has 500. Anything else you want to add as far as your concerns and why? Anything additional as to why Ameer Abdullah is number 3 on your list for safety, or does that pretty much summarize it?
I just look at football's a chaotic system, and there's different points of inflection where something can happen. And Ameer Abdullah has a lot of paths to relevance, but he also has a lot of paths to irrelevance, and that speaks both to his upside as well as to his floor. There's a lot of different ways that Abdullah can wind up marginalized this year, whether he doesn't pick up the pass blocking, whether Joique Bell winds up carving out a larger role than some expect, and so I think that speaks a lot to any one of those things could be the hit that ruins his value. And then just on the topic of safety in general, I think it's important to note that you can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind, because your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, they're no friends of mine.
You continue to amaze me, man. What a great reference. I also would follow that up with boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep, beep, beep. There we go. Anyway.
I'm laughing, but I don't get it.
Hey, real quick, Sean, before you go for it, I just want to give a shout out to someone on our Instagram account who's actually been liking our show memes. Dale Moss, ex-NFL wide receiver from the Green Bay Packers.
And now a model.
And
Randy's brother.
Hey,
fighting the good fight.
You know who else is a former NFL wide receiver? The People's Champ. So there's that. Fred X.
Dwayne Johnson?
No, not Dwayne Johnson. Damian, question for you. Damian, can you give me the ADP rankings from ESPN for these 3 guys? Because I want to see how they match up with what we have.
Yeah. So actually, can I do this, guys? Can we make this? Let's just make this a yes or a no, okay? And we'll just go down the line. I'm going to give you where Ameer Abdullah's ADP is, and I'm going to tell you 3 guys who are ahead of him, and you tell me. We'll start with Adam. We'll go to Sean, and then we'll go to Johnny. Would you draft that guy ahead of? I'm sorry. Would you draft Ameer Abdullah ahead of the guy who's ahead of him? Okay?
Well, and I'm okay with that, but just really quickly, give me the ADP for those 3 guys, just for a second.
Ameer Abdullah's ADP as of right now is 78th overall.
Okay.
On the ESPN rankings. Davante Adams' ADP right now is 58th overall on the ESPN rankings. And Dougie Fresh, the Muscle Hamsters, his ADP is 76th overall on the ESPN rankings.
Interesting. Okay, so all I want to point out with those numbers is we are slightly we as a panel here don't necessarily agree, but it's very close, obviously, here. We have Davante Adams as the clear-cut number 1, by the way, from the Sauce rankings, taking first place in 3 of the 4 categories. At number 2, we have Ameer Abdullah, and then at number 3, the clear consensus for us is Doug Martin, who is 2 points higher, of course, than Abdullah, in the ADP rankings. But again, everyone's going to have to kind of make their own decisions there with regards to those running backs in particular, since they're so close. You know what I mean? But Damien, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to point that out versus our rankings.
Good information. So we'll start with Adam. Adam, just yes or no. Would you draft Ameer Abdullah ahead of Chris Ivory?
Hang on, Damien. Sorry, but what was that once again? You're cutting out on me.
Would you draft Ameer Abdullah ahead of Chris Ivory? If ADP wasn't a thing, right? Just who do you like better? Who'd you rather have on your team?
I'm going to cop out, and I'm going to say PPR or not, because in PPR, yeah, but in standard, no. I'd rather have Ivory.
Generally, we focus standard, I think. It's fair to say.
Okay. Well, then I'd probably go Ivory.
Okay. Ameer Abdullah or Doug Martin?
Is this to Adam as well?
Martin. I'm going to go Martin still.
Yeah, this is still to Adam. Adam, Ameer Abdullah or Martavis Bryant?
I'm going to go with Bryant.
Okay, I'll go over to J3. J3, Ameer Abdullah or Chris Ivory?
What round would this be in?
So this is going to be in your 7th round.
Abdullah.
Ameer Abdullah or Doug Martin?
Don't change your tune now, bud. Stick with it.
Doug Martin, yeah.
Ameer Abdullah or Martavis Bryant?
Martavis Bryant.
Sean, Ameer Abdullah or Chris Ivory?
I agree with both of these guys.
Ameer Abdullah or Doug Martin?
That's what I'm saying. So I'm passing.
You're going to take all 3. So okay, gotcha. Okay, so we'll go on to the next guy. So we'll move on to Davante Adams. Adam, Davante Adams or Vincent Jackson?
Sorry, Adams.
Okay. Davante Adams or Andre Ellington?
Adams.
Davante Adams or Travis Kelce?
I think I'd probably lean Adams there, but I think that one would really depend on where I went in the first couple rounds.
I was going to say, I think it depends on your comp.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go J3. Davante Adams or V-Jax?
Vincent Jackson.
Davante Adams or Andre Ellington?
Adams.
Davante Adams or Travis Kelce?
Travis Kelce.
Sean, Davante Adams or V-Jax?
Once again, I agree 100% with Adam. I'm exactly the same as him on this one.
Okay,
I'm taking Adams over V-Jax. I'm taking Adams over Ellington, and it's situational from Kelce.
Right.
Yeah, we got it, Sean. We got it.
J3, man. J3, you love your Jameis Winston, man. That's what what I've learned more than anything else. You need to
listen to you.
He loves Florida State
right now.
He loves Florida State guys. Listen, Damien, let me explain something to you, right?
Listen,
If Charlie Ward If Charlie Ward was in Madden right now as a free agent, Johnny would cut Aaron Rodgers to sign and start Charlie Ward at 50.
I'm going to tell you something, guys, real quick. I got Madden yesterday. And I'm actually the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Of course you are.
My starting quarterback is Jameis Winston. My backup's DJ Manuel.
What do you know?
All day.
What do you know?
Of course.
What do you know?
Okay, all right. Last player, we got Doug Martin, Dougie Fresh. Adam, Doug Martin or Martavis Bryant?
Bryant.
Doug Martin or Tom Brady?
Give me Tom Terrific.
Doug Martin or Cam Newton?
I'm going to go Doug Martin there.
Okay. J3, Doug Martin or Martavis Bryant?
Martin.
Doug Martin or Tom Brady? Doug Martin or
Martin.
Cam? Sean.
The guy didn't go to Florida State, you know.
in Johnny's heart.
No, hold on. Let me go back. First of all, I think Tom Brady, it was actually a little closer than Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton is probably before I want to draft a quarterback, and maybe Tom Brady as well. Martavis Bryant is good, but give me a starting running back in the NFL before give me a number 2 receiver at this point. Running back is so thin.
That's why you need to get Devontae Freeman. And who else played at Florida State?
Oh, God. In the NFL right now?
Christian Michael?
He played at Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. James Wilder Jr.
Yeah, draft him.
Smith from the Atlanta. What?
Hey, listen, Sean. What do you mean who? 4th string for the Bengals. You take him now. Okay.
Yeah, I want the 5th string wide receiver for Jacksonville, Rashad Green. I'll take him too.
There you go. Okay, as we go off the rails, Florida State always sends you off the rails, doesn't it? So there we go. We have who we would take for ADP for all of those guys. Sean, did you say?
No.
Okay, Dougie Fresh or Martavis Bryant?
Starting back over starting wide over second wide out.
Dougie Fresh or Tom Brady?
Tom Terrific.
Doug or Cam Newton?
I think Cam Newton is going to be absolutely horrible without Kelvin Benjamin this year. Even though he has Olsen, I am selling all day on Cam Newton.
He was absolutely horrible with Cam.
So I'm not sure you answered the question. Would you want Doug Martin or Cam Newton?
Fair enough.
Yeah, you're evading, Sean. You're evading.
I'm gonna go with Doug Martin over Cam Newton.
Checking.
Fair enough. Hey, Adam keeps you honest, doesn't he?
He does.
Oh man. All right. So Damien, what do you want to take away from that then? Versus ADP.
Well, you know what? I have a couple major takeaways. All right. One for me is I came into this with it. I wasn't a believer in Doug Martin. I'm still not a believer in Doug Martin. I see the value in him, okay, but I'm not taking him. He's going to be flying up boards. In terms of Davante Adams, I love the upside. I love the possibility there. I don't know if you can take Davante Adams too early. Well, I'm sure you could do it. You could, but I mean, if you could,
sounds like a dare to me.
Yeah. You know what? Number 1 overall. But you know what? I could see taking Davante Adams at around wide receiver 15 range. If he's a 4th round pick, I don't think that's as crazy as it seems. And then Ameer Abdullah, guys, I'm going to make a blanket statement about Ameer Abdullah. I always fall into this trap where I pick guys that I think like a dynasty league owner in a redraft league.
Cordell Patterson.
Cordell. Yeah, don't bring up
every running back he took last year.
Johnny, hey, listen, I got Eddie Lacy his first year and Gio Bernard, so
You sure did, fella.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, anyway, I will not be taking Ameer Abdullah in the 3rd or 4th round this year in any fantasy football draft. So.
All right. Well, hey, speaking of fantasy football drafts, let's talk about our draft that we had last week. Last week, of course, we had the first annual Knock and Roll Show league draft, featuring, of course, us 3, goofballs, and then we had Adam. We had Anthony Grace from FFChamps.com. And ESPN Radio, the Lehigh Valley. We had Scott Barrett from Number Fire on, and then of course we had our Joes. We had Jen, John, Ryan, and Jason. And we're taking a look back here. Johnny put together an interesting graphic that we'll post up on our Facebook page, after the show. And it shows projected point values for each player. Johnny, I'm sorry, real quick. Where are these projected points values from?
ESPN.
Okay.
And it's based on the league scoring too.
Okay, perfect. So
standard ESPN scoring.
Right. So when you're looking at this, and just looking at some of the early picks here, even just going first three, of course on my team I had C.J. Anderson, I had Jeremy Hill, and I had Mark Ingram, Johnny, J3 there. You had Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, and I believe you took Jimmy Graham with your third pick.
Yeah.
And then Damian, you took, let's see here, Des Bryant, Calvin Johnson, and...
Nope.
No?
That was Damian.
That's James' team.
Wait, I'm sorry, you're at Hydra Niners. I'm sorry.
Hydra
That was
Niners.
Le'Veon Bell, A.J. Green, and Cobb, right?
Yep.
First three. And then Harstad, he took the dynamic duo, Andrew Luck and Rob Gronkowski, and then followed by his third pick, which I believe was Alfred Morris. So when you look back at these teams, Johnny, obviously you're number one, according to preseason projected rank.
Obviously.
But I mean, and obviously you're going to root for your team. So but John, after your team, and not just going by these preseason ranks, who do you feel like had, who do you feel on paper had the second best team?
I got to tell you, I really like Damian's team.
Okay.
I love Le'Veon Bell, and getting A.J. Green, who I think is going to be quietly good this year. I think this is going to be his coming back party. Love Randall Cobb. Ameer Abdullah, listen, we know what he is. We just talked about him, but as your flex, I don't think you can do much better in your flex. Jordan Cameron, with the resurging Miami Dolphins offense this year. And Stafford's a top 10 quarterback. So yeah, I like his team.
Adam, I don't know. Are you able to? Are you looking at the rosters right now?
Yeah, I got him.
Okay, Adam. So obviously you're going to love your team, but do you have a second favorite here?
Yeah. I think it was one of the Joes. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the name right. I think it was Demian Jessel.
Demian Jessel. Yes, that is correct. That would be
Demian Jessel. Okay.
She really likes her team.
Yeah, Mr. or Mrs. Jessel, I thought had a pretty good squad. I hear Le'Veon Bell is actually good at football, so I think that's a good way to start. And then, of course, he or she double-dipped on the Green Bay wide receivers and Randall Cobb and Davante Adams, and so he or she won the Jordy Nelson lottery when Nelson went down, which I think is a nice preseason boost to expectations.
Thank you for being pronoun sensitive to me.
And by the way, I want to say I find it fascinating that Damian would go out of his way to draft a talented football player like Le'Veon Bell, only to draft an untalented player like Matthew Stafford. I just find that pretty interesting. Damian, how about you? Number two, who do you have as your number two team?
Well, you know what? Number two really sums it up in more ways than one here for this team. But I'm going to have to reluctantly say that my second favorite team belongs to J3 in this league. It pains me that at first glance, I mean, his team is stacked at every position except for wide receivers, but I really want to hate his two wide receivers, but I kind of don't. So I have to go J3.
My second favorite team is my team, actually. I like that I have three strong running backs. My wide receivers.
I love how we figured how to do that. Like,
what's going on, dude? What do you mean? What do you mean your team?
My team is not my favorite team. I don't think I have the best team on that. I think I
was pick your favorite team then.
Are you talking about your second favorite team?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about myself here.
Who's your favorite?
Well, I'll tell you what, that Sean guy knows how to draft a squad. I'll tell you what, when you're talking about number two teams, Sean's got it down. I think, Damien, I agree with these guys. I think you have the best team, and I think for me, what seals that deal is.
Are you guys talking about Cian?
Cian, yes. Damien, I actually really like that you were able to steal Davante Adams there with Nelson going down. I feel like that's really going to help you out, and honestly, I feel like that gives you a really, really, really strong group of players that you can play at your flex. So, anyway, that's what I have to say. Anything about draft recap? We're going to have the other guys on the show over the coming weeks. We'll bring on some of the Joes as well. But anything you guys want to add as far as?
I want to add one thing real quick, just about because I think it really speaks to one strategy that a lot of our listeners or viewers might be pondering. Adam went a different direction. He really did something unique in the draft. And on paper, I mean, I have to be honest, Adam, just looking at your team on paper, I don't love the team. But if one or two things break right, this could easily be the most dominant team in the league. Adam drafted, as we said before, he took Andrew Luck and Rob Gronkowski in rounds 1 and 2, which it's the gambit that he embarked upon was that he knew that he was going to be thinner at the other positions. But if you can make up for that that thinness, you can be okay. He took Arian Foster in the later rounds. So if Foster steps up and comes through, all of a sudden you might have a team there that could be scary. That all said, to me, taking a wide receiver and a tight end in the first couple rounds is a dangerous proposition in a league unless you really trust yourself to get values late. Not as dangerous to you, Adam, or you just wanted to live on the edge, or what?
The goal isn't to be an above-average team. The goal isn't to get a really good team. The goal is to be a dominant team. The goal is to be the best team in the league. There's no trophy for third place. There's no trophy for second place. So I like high-variance players. I think in a 10-team league especially, there's not as much scarcity at running back and wide receiver, so you can get away with waiting a little bit, especially since we're only starting the 2 receivers in the first place. I thought this was really the perfect league to go for it and just get difference makers at 2 maybe non-traditional positions. And then after that, my philosophy is making the playoffs is a lot easier than winning once you're in the playoffs. So I grabbed a bunch of guys who were extremely highly rated, but who are expected to have a slow start to back up Andrew Luck, which I think there's a pretty good chance his suspension just gets overturned. If you're listening to the judge talking about the NFL's case, he's clearly not a fan. And then you add Antonio Gates, you add LeGarrette Blount, you add Todd Gurley. And it actually prompted one of my Twitter followers to joke that my toughest buy is actually week 1.
Yeah, there you go. Well, basically you're Chip Kelly.
On dial-up.
Hang on, what was that? I think my connection is not great here.
I said, Adam, basically you're Chip Kelly.
With the injured guys, I've been saying that for years. I am 100% convinced that Chip Kelly is following me on Twitter and actually copying off my homework.
He must be.
I'm not. I'm literally being 100% serious that Chip Kelly is probably one of my Twitter followers.
All right, guys.
Well, listen here, Adam. You better do your homework. Better talk to Chip Kelly because you're playing me week 1. So.
And I'm playing.
Good time to play you.
So hey,
no one cares.
I have an interesting discussion piece I want to bring up, and I'm going to save that for the end of the show. Right now, I just want to touch on a couple of news and notes, tidbits. Neither one of incredible relevance, but I think they both bring up an interesting, point. Damien, I'm going to start the first one with you, and this one is actually I'm going to give you 2 news stories. Okay, here we go. The first one is that New England Patriots wide receiver who looks like he'll be starting out the season on the PUP list, Brandon LaFell, is really not happy with his 83 overall rating in the new Madden football game. Now, on the other side of that, there's a news story that says that the Atlanta Falcons brought in veteran quarterback and mediocre player extraordinaire Rex Grossman to bring another arm onto that team. My question for you, Damian, is which story do you care about less?
Oh boy, that's like picking which child do you love more. It's so hard. I care about what how
I feel like you have to like the Madden story more, right?
It's zero for both. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I like them. I like them not at all very equally.
Now I'm going to pitch the third story here, and actually, Adam, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to bounce it over to John. In all seriousness, so it looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed everybody's favorite guy to love and or hate, depending on what you're looking at. I guess from an excitement standpoint, veteran quarterback Michael Vick, who now joins his fourth team. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting that Michael Vick is going to be a guy that people are going to go out and steal and draft and whatever. We know what Michael Vick is. I guess my question to you is, if Ben Roethlisberger goes down because he gets another motorcycle accident and his face becomes even fatter, or something else, were to happen to Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, there it is. Should something happen to Ben Roethlisberger, given the amount of talent that team still has, with a Heath Miller, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown, do you feel like should Ben Roethlisberger become injured, that Vick is a guy worth going out and picking up off the waiver wire, or is he still just dust?
I'd actually disagree with you a little bit and say I don't think we do know who Michael Vick is. And he's really had one of the more interesting career arcs in the NFL. I know 2002, 2003, there was all that hype surrounding him, and really deservedly so. He was actually pretty good passing the ball in his second year as a starter. Dan Reeves had him in that offense that really emphasized his strengths. It was a lot of vertical passing, and then they were relying on Vick's legs to stretch the field horizontally. And then Reeves got fired, and they brought in Mora, and Mora decided to try and shoehorn Vick into a West Coast offense, which really is not a great fit for his skills because it stretches the pass, it keeps defenders closer to the line of scrimmage, and it closes down all those rushing lanes that he was taking advantage of. And then he was out of the league, and then he's with Philadelphia, and he's bounced around, and he's probably the quarterback who I've seen the most, who I understand the least. I'm not really sure what he is, who he is, but I do think he could absolutely be a shot in the arm for Pittsburgh's offense, and most especially I think he could be a shot in the arm for his fantasy owners if Roethlisberger went down, just by sheer dint of the fact that most fantasy scoring systems value rushing yards as 2.5 times as valuable as passing yards. And we've seen this game before where Tim Tebow and Vince Young were both top 12 fantasy quarterbacks as rookies, despite being at the most charitable, serviceable, passable NFL quarterbacks, just because they were getting so many rushing yards. And I could see Vick doing that. I could see Vick, if Pittsburgh went back to that Dan Reeves style where Vick's just scrambling around and throwing bombs, and you decide you're going to live with the results. I think he could be. I think he could be a top 6 fantasy quarterback down the stretch if Roethlisberger was out.
Johnny, if Roethlisberger goes down, are you quick to burn your waiver pickup on him? On
no,
Vick?
I'm quick to burn all my Pittsburgh Steelers players in trading. If they get Vick, I'm not in on that. I'm trying to sell some of my Pittsburgh guys to get away from that situation. I don't trust Vick. I don't like Vick. I think he makes bad decisions. He runs too much. He's not nearly as good as a passer as he used to be. He fumbles a lot. Honestly, I think he's worse than RG3 when it comes to just taking bad hits and not knowing when to go down. If Michael Vick is a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm trading and unloading my Pittsburgh guys and trying to get some value out of them.
Damian?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Adam. I think if he becomes a starter, I don't like him as a quarterback. I don't like him as a player, but I think he'll put up some points for your fantasy team.
Yeah, you know what? John, I'm not trying to leave you on an island here, because I agree with you that we know that Vick does at times hold on to the ball too much. He doesn't know how to slide. He's had fumbling issues in the past. If the wind blows on him in the wrong direction, because how small the guy's hands are. When he holds the ball. But I'm going to have to say that I think if you have a healthy, talented team around him, with a guy like Le'Veon Bell, again, is similar to the Doug Martin, Jameis Winston conversation we were having. When you have a talented running back or a guy who can take some of the heat off of that quarterback by keeping the defense honest, I think that's something that will play to Michael Vick's strength. I think you'll have a really strong play action should he actually come into the game and give him the opportunity to bootleg, because you have to believe, you have to take the chance that Le'Veon Bell is going to get that carry, and you have to collapse on that. With Le'Veon Bell, being able to take the handoff instead of a play action, and the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, I think that also does open it up for a guy like Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant to stretch that field vertically and give Vick the chance to throw it up. But again, at the end of the day, John, I agree with you from the standpoint of decision making. And Michael Vick, if he comes into the game, has to make good decisions with the ball, and it's questionable whether or not he can do that. So, Adam, you make a good point. He's a guy that you feel like we feel like we've seen the most, and the football analysts have talked about him the most, when he's been in the NFL. But you really don't. It's hard to know what the guy is, So, it's just.
I'll say this.
Yep.
In his big year with Philadelphia, Michael Vick played the single greatest fantasy game by any player at any position in the last 30 years.
That game was insane. That Monday night game, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was like 6 total touchdowns and 100 rushing yards. And it was Washington.
Yeah. I remember because I had him on my team, and I coming into Monday night, I was down by like 55 points, and I came back to win. He scored in our league, I think he scored 63 or 64 points. Something crazy like that.
All right, as we wrap up the show, and I know this is not going to be a 2-minute conversation piece, but I saved it last week, and I wanted to really bring it in. I saved it 2 weeks ago. I really wanted to bring it in to tonight's conversation. So, with people being hurt, with Arian Foster being hurt, and now the bottom half of that tier 1 group of running backs sort of all moving up a notch, and and situations being what they are. There's obviously the question of certain guys coming into new systems, and you're not sure how they're going to work, if they fit that style. And then, of course, you have guys that aren't maybe on the best team. So real quick, and then we'll wrap up the show tonight. Damien, I'm going to start with you. Damien, if you're in a position where that you're near the end of the first tier of running backs, who do you like more? Do you like DeMarco Murray more, or do you like LaShawn McCoy?
Yeah, this one's not close for me. It's DeMarco Murray all day.
Okay. And then, Adam, let me throw that to you.
Yeah, Murray.
Murray. And John?
DM.
Is would something drastic have to happen on either side for LaShawn McCoy? I mean, is it really not close for any of you guys?
Yeah. DeMarco might have to break his leg.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it might be Ryan Matthews.
You know what? He says that in jest. I honestly, I would take if Murray broke his leg, I would take Ryan Matthews ahead of LaShawn McCoy.
You really?
No, I'm serious.
serious.
My love for McCoy went like this.
After one bad season, I'm really surprised.
My first show was actually the second show. I was all about LaShawn McCoy. I think it is his breakout year. He's going to come back. He's still young enough where he's going to come back. He's had one bad season. The year before this, he had a great season. Every week I believe less and less about LaShawn McCoy.
Fair enough. Well, hey, listen, guys. Thank you guys all for tuning in again to the Mock and Roll Show. Adam, thank you so much for being our guest on tonight's show. It was great to have you back here. Make sure that everybody tunes in next week as we will be doing. What are we doing next week, boys? Next week, we're going to be talking about waiver wire pickups, potential waiver wire steals, guys that you might find hiding out there. And, of course, we're going to have one of our pros from our league, Anthony Grace, from ffchamps.com, patriots.com, and ESPN Radio at the Lehigh Valley joining us. It was a pleasure, Adam, having you on the show. We hope to have you back again. And next time, are we going to get Superman or Clark Kent, or is it just going to surprise us?
I thought we already decided you were going to have me on week 17 so I could discuss my championship.
Well,
so
listen,
I'll go ahead and I'll bring the hat back for that.
That's good.
Wow.
Hey, listen, and that's fine. I think we'd like to have you back soon so you could just remind us again how good you are.
Hey, also next week, Sean, maybe we can discuss, because we have our big draft on Sunday, the League of Thrones draft.
Yeah, you know what I think we'll do there is let's bring those rosters and we'll shoot them over to Anthony and see what Anthony thinks about on paper which teams he likes, and we'll kind of discuss that a bit. So anyway, so stay tuned for that and more. Of course, subscribe to us on iTunes. Make sure to go to Instagram and Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Mock and Roll Show. Lots of great memes up there. We've got a lot of information on Twitter. Damien, of course, is engaging in healthy debates with everybody and anybody on Twitter over fantasy football. And once again, we want to remind you guys, if you're looking to play daily fantasy sports, DraftKings.com is the place to go. This year they'll be giving away over $1 billion. So go over to DraftKings.com, sign up, use the promo code MOCKROLL, MOCKROLL, and get free entry right now before Week 1 starts for the NFL. Again, on behalf of J3, Damien, and myself, Adam, thank you for being a part of the Mock and Roll Show, and we'll see everybody next week.